It's a Run DMC weekend here in the first round. You've found us. We're going to be talking about sports because that's what we do every week. But the reason we talk about it is sports brings people together in a way that nothing else does. It's not just tailgating. It's not just fantasy football. You become a part of a family when you start following a team. And then, like me, you get to go to family reunions with your team and meet Giselle. You're in the first round. Let's start the show.
You're tuned into the hottest sports analysis of the week with your hosts Ron Dolbeck and Chris Roberts. And now, here's the first round.
You're in the first round. You found us. We're live on YouTube. We're in week 5 of college football, and not a lot of great games going on, but there's enough in the world of sports to talk about. We're going to hit all of it. I'm here in the studios with Chris Roberts, my co-host, and Taylor, son of God, on the board. Hopefully presenting sports in an interesting way. I want to get us started off with college football. First of all, the schedule isn't that strong this week, but there's a couple games that I want to be watching. Arizona State, an approve me game, goes on the road to Cal. Cal's sitting at 4-0, giving 4.5 points at home. This is a game that has a mild level of interest to me just because both these teams are middle-of-the-road teams, and I want to see how it plays out. Penn State goes on the road to Maryland. You know, Maryland was shot out of a cannon at the beginning of the season, and they've kind of fluttered off a little bit. I'm interested to see what Penn State does on the road. They're given 6.5 points. Texas Tech goes on the road to Oklahoma. Texas Tech historically can score points, but we know Oklahoma can score points. Will anybody play defense? I don't think so. That's a game that I'm interested in also. Northwestern goes on the road to Camp Randall to take on Wisconsin after an absolute dismantling last week in Wisconsin of Michigan. Michigan is still probably crying over that loss because they looked so incredibly bad. More turnovers, more bad play calling, ineffective quarterback play from Shea Patterson. Jim Harbaugh on the sideline crying into his khakis thinking, next week will I have a job? Not if they keep performing like this. This week, Northwestern goes on the road. I think Wisconsin will still look strong. And by the way, they have my preseason Heisman favorite, Jonathan Taylor. He is a stud running back. I am in man crush mode with Jonathan Taylor. I love that guy. Michigan has got to bounce back. They get a good home game against Rutgers. I think they will. USC, shocking upset last week at home against Utah. This week, they go on the road and get a real test against Washington, given 10 points there. I don't know if I take the 10 points if I'm USC. Virginia Notre Dame seems to be the biggest game of the week, and I can't even actually believe I'm saying that. Virginia at Notre Dame. I think it's the only matchup of ranked teams in college football, but this should be a good one. This is my teaser special of the week, which I'm 4-0 on right now. Take Notre Dame. Take the teaser points on them. Get them down to -5.5. I think they'll cover all day for you. We'll get into that game also. The number 1 team in the country, Clemson, 4-0, goes on the road. They're going to take on North Carolina. I don't know how much of a test this is going to be. I think it's just going to be a matter of can they cover the 28 points or not. I look for them to roll. We'll break that down more. Kansas State, number 24 in the country, playing tough against a schedule so far. They go on the road and take on a team that I think is more of a buzzsaw than what they've shown, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State goes on the road to Texas last week, loses a close, hard-fought game, but I really love their quarterback, Sanders, and I think that Oklahoma State is going to pull this game out, but this is going to be a good entertainment value game to watch. Kansas State's 3-0, Oklahoma State 3-1. That's going to be one that I'm going to have my eyeball on. Mississippi State goes on the road to Auburn, getting 10.5 points. I think Auburn should cover the 10.5 points, but Mississippi State shut down a Kentucky team that 2 weeks ago looked really good. There's some interest level in that game. Finally, Washington State, who gave up 9 bazillion points to the Chip Kelly fighting UCLA Bruins at home, and their quarterback scored 9 touchdowns, and you lose at home. That can't happen, but they're going on the road to take on Utah. Tyler Hurley, their 6'1 senior quarterback, got hurt last week at the USC game. I don't know if he's going to be 100%. What I do know is that Utah at 19 ranked at 19. They're 3-1. I'm taking Wazoo plus the points on here. If you could score 60 points in a game, I'll take Wazoo in the points. And finally, like and subscribe to the first round. We have a growing audience. Whatever you're doing right now, wherever you're listening to us, we want to thank you and tell you we appreciate your support. We try and put on a great show for you. And here's my co-host, Chris Roberts. Chris Roberts, what's going on?
There's so much stuff going on in sports this week. I mean, we got boxing. We got college football. We got NFL. We got it all, Ron.
Okay, let's start with college football. And not one of the games that's on the board, just a story. 3 more defections, which make 5 total on the year for Tennessee. They're in a tailspin. Last week they come to Florida. We were at that game. You know, Florida pretty much had their way with them. They're coming off home losses to Georgia Southern, which was embarrassing at best, and a home loss to BYU, which shouldn't have happened to a Tennessee team. Jeremy Pruitt's lost 5 players. What's going on with that?
Well, Ron, you have 5 players that he lost. I mean, he lost players in key positions. I mean, he's losing linebackers, defensive backs, wide receivers. I mean, granted, he didn't recruit those players, but I mean, these are players in key positions that he's losing. So with this, I guess with this losing culture going on, Jeremy Pruitt has to find a way to fix this stuff.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if it's fixable. This might be one of those things where if you're a Tennessee fan, you're just saying to yourself, okay, we're on a 2 or 3 year window, but as bad as you look right now, I don't know if I want to hold on to the 2 or 3 year window thing. Do you?
I don't think so either. I think Tennessee is in a situation where they're at a crossroads. What are we going to do about it? Are we looking at getting another coach, or is he going to find a way to find a way to fix this?
We can't be pulling the trigger on Jeremy Pruitt that fast. I mean, stuff looks abominably bad right now and galactically challenging, but I don't think we're at a point yet where we're starting to think about losing the coach. Talking about key players, we have on a Run DMC weekend, and I don't know if you got the memo. I mean, I'm doing my best for Run DMC weekend right now, but we do have a key player here. Manny, where's Manny? Hey, Manny, come here, buddy, come here. This is our key player, our mascot. Come here, Manny, come here. Oh goodness, come here. Oh my goodness. Oh, this is our mascot, Manny. Manny, you gonna help me with the picks? You want to help me with the picks? Ooh, okay. He wants to go lay back down. Manny's our mascot today in the St. Jude Studios in the first round here. I love Manny. He's a great dog, and we've had him for a while, but he is a bit of a sissy, if I'm allowed to say that word. And one of the stories that I want to get into after we cover college football is the pay inequity or inequality as far as the women's soccer team goes. The women's national team that just got done winning the World Cup.
Right. And, you know, when it comes down to the pay equity, I understand where they're coming from. I get the whole pay equity, pay gap thing. You have women who are actually getting paid 88 cents to where the men are actually making $1. So I can understand exactly where they're coming from. Let's see if there's a way to kind of make this a little bit fair for everybody.
I mean, I'm all about fairness, but I think that we need to get into the numbers a little bit before we start talking about, about what's truly fair, because it needs to be based on income generated, right?
Correct. That's another issue, but I think that the women, they do have a valid point, as far as getting paid. I mean, when you look at some of the revenue that are generated outside of the actual sport itself, and they're not getting their fair share of that outside of the game itself. So I think that it has to be some type of way to make that gap a little bit closer than what it really is.
But I know we're going to get into it later in the show, and I'm all for equal pay. But when you really look at some of the numbers, it shades towards the fact that I lean towards you've got to have production for pay. This is a business. This isn't a charity that they're doing. They're not just doing it for fun. This isn't high school soccer. This is a job. And if you're going to get paid at a job, then it should be equal pay for equal work. And when you look at the income that the Women's World Cup brings in and the income that the Men's World Cup brings in, it is light years apart. We'll get into more of that in the show. Right now, let's get it started off with Arizona and Cal in college football. I want to get the picks started. Last week, we kind of went in the tank just a little bit on our picks. I was 6 wins, 4 losses on my overall picks against the spread. The week before, I went 9-1. So I don't know if I took a smart pill last week or not, or if I need to break the Prozacs in half. We're going to get back on the winning track this week. It starts off with Arizona and Cal. Arizona State going on the road to the Cal Bears. The Cal Bears get an SEC win on the road at Ole Miss last week. I don't know how much of a win that is because Ole Miss isn't that good, so I don't know how good Cal can be, but this is an interesting game. I think that Herm Edwards has got Arizona State on the right track, and I think that this is a competitive game. If Cal wins, we have to start taking them serious because Arizona State does have a quality organization right now.
Yeah, they do have a quality organization. They have a quality staff. I actually like the way that Herm is actually turning his team around. I mean, they had a actual key win against a Big Ten opponent against Michigan State a couple weeks ago. Defensively, I think this is going to be the challenge that Cal has to be able to unravel. They have to be able to unravel this defense because that defense is going to come and play.
And they probably will. Cal playing at home, I give them the edge. It's a 4.5-point line right now. I say Cal give the 4.5. The next game I wanted to look at was Penn State at Maryland. Maryland was like a cannonball shot out at the beginning of the season. 2 wins, over 100 points scored. The defense looked great. The offense looked amazing. They looked like they were on track. 2 weeks ago, Penn State at home against Pitt didn't look that great. So it's kind of still early enough in the season where we don't know really what we're getting. Penn State's laying 6.5 points going on the road, but I'm laying the 6.5 points. I'm taking Penn State all the way in this one.
Yeah, now this game is going to be interesting. Maryland at home is a really tough opponent. Offensively, they could be lights out. Again, they did have a tough loss last week. Penn State going against Pitt, they struggled a little bit, but you see last week that Pitt actually put up points against UCF. So this is going to be a good game. I think Maryland, if they can find a way to get their offense rolling, Penn State might be in for trouble. Texas
Tech goes on the road to Oklahoma. This might be an absolute whitewash right now. I mean, Oklahoma offensively is hitting on all cylinders. They've got a great coach that's recruited well. They have a great quarterback. They have players that can get open in space and tear the top off on a defense. The big question with Oklahoma, I mean, they're playing at home, but the big question with them is what the big question is every week in the Big 12 is can anybody play any defense in this game?
Nobody's playing defense in the Big 12. It's all about who gets the ball last and what quarterback can throw for the most yards.
Texas Tech's getting 27.5 points on the road. How do you see the game folding out?
I see that game, Oklahoma running away with it all together. I see Jalen Hurts having a big game against this Texas Tech team that doesn't play defense. I see Jalen Hurts possibly scoring maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns in this game against this Texas Tech defense.
Last week we saw Justin Fields, the quarterback from Ohio State, go on the road to Indiana and score 6 touchdowns in 1 quarter. I mean, that's amazing to me. I don't know if he's going to score 6 touchdowns, but I think Oklahoma gets the job done at home. I don't know if I want to give the 27 points. My confidence level in that is a little bit lower than average. 27 is a lot to give up, even if it's Texas Tech. Texas Tech is 2-1. The next game I have on my board, Northwestern 1-2, going on the road to Wisconsin. And again, a big road number here. Wisconsin's giving up 24 points at home. I don't know if my confidence level, even though they're 3-0 and just beat a team in Michigan that I don't know what they are yet. I know they're not solid. But 24 points seems like a lot to give up for Wisconsin, even though it's a home game.
Yeah, it is a lot to give up. I mean, just historically, Northwestern is a pretty tough team to play all together. I mean, I think that this Northwestern team is going to give Wisconsin a little bit of a headache in the first half, but I think Wisconsin pull it away. I look for Jonathan Taylor to have a big game.
Yep, my Heisman pick.
Your Heisman pick.
And Pat Fitzgerald teams, offensively and defensively, play solid. They play usually error-free. They do well on the road, and they're not going to make mistakes. So at 24, I mean, if you really want to be confident, you tease it up to 31, or up to 30. But I'm liking Northwestern plus the points here on the road.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor can have a big game, but I don't know. That's just a feeling that I have. Speaking of needing to bounce back after last week at Wisconsin, Michigan gets a home game against Rutgers to make themselves look good and possibly feel good. The stories are already starting to swirl about Jim Harbaugh. Here's the thing. You get rid of Jim Harbaugh, but then who are you going to replace him with? This is a blue chip organization, and we were talking about this last night during the Green Bay game against the Philadelphia Eagles. You could fire him, but, who are you going to go out? Who's on the curb right now with his thumb out, or who are you going to recruit? I threw out Ty Whittingham from Utah. That might be a good plug-in. I said a couple weeks ago, you throw $6 or $7 million a year at Brett Venables, the DC at Clemson. That might be an option. But, you could talk about getting rid of Jim Harbaugh. He's not getting the job done, but then you got to replace him with what?
You have nothing to really replace him with. I think Jim Harbaugh he's just gotten away from what made Jim Harbaugh. He was a tough-nosed coach who liked to run the ball, and then you have a decent quarterback who can actually pass the ball. But Shea
Patterson is not working out.
Shea Patterson struggled, had a whole miss.
Yeah, we got to let that
weapons.
go. We got to let the whole Shea Patterson thing go. So if it's him and he's worried about his job, you scrap Shea Patterson right now. Go with the backup for the rest of the season, hoping it works out. I don't know where to go with him anymore because he at University of San Diego and at Stanford he did well. In the pros he did well, but at Michigan it just hasn't worked out, and you can't really put your finger on it. You could say player development. You could say the Shea Patterson experiment hasn't worked out. You could say he's brought in good recruiting classes, top 10 recruiting classes, so they're not developing the talent that's there. But if you're going to get rid of him, what's out there? I threw out a couple names, but, if you're Michigan, I think you're in a terrible spot right now.
Yeah, Michigan is in a terrible spot. First thing, Michigan has went through offensive coordinators like a person going through a pass dispenser. They had Pep Hamilton at one point. Then they moved to another offensive coordinator. Now they're going to a spread offense. Make up your mind. What is really going to be your identity?
Yeah. And the other thing is do you scrap the season now? Do you go to a backup quarterback to try and save your job? Or do you ride it out knowing you still got to play Nebraska, you still got to play Ohio State, you still got to play Wisconsin? God forbid you make it to a New Year's Day bowl game and get blown out last year like Florida did. I'm looking at the schedule right here. I'm saying 4 or 5 more solid possible losses on the season. If you don't beat Ohio State, that's got to be it.
Of course, that has to be it. That's what you were hired for. You were hired to beat Ohio State, and unfortunately, he has not been able to beat Ohio State, even when he had prominent teams.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen this season. But we take our hand off of the switch for the electric chair on Jim Harbaugh right now, and you get a 1-week respite because you're playing Rutgers. I'll tell you what, they're giving 28 points. Oh man, I just don't think they're disciplined enough to cover the 28. I just don't. I'm taking Rutgers at 1-2 on the road, which is an insane pick, but I'm saying give me the 28 points.
I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, I'm saying give me the 28 points. The next game I want to go to, USC goes on the road to Washington. I'm really looking forward to this game. USC's only on their 4th string quarterback at this point. They're going to have to start pulling guys out of the phone book to bring them in and play quarterback. They've lost 4 quarterbacks, 2 because of injury. Sears transferred, and now they're down to their 4th string guy, who, by the way, went over for 300 yards throwing last week against Utah at home, who was a top 13 defense. I don't know what happened to Utah last week. I had Utah minus the 3.5, and I was stupid dumb for taking that pick. They were not ready to play. They didn't play with intensity. They couldn't score. They were going up and down the field. They couldn't score in the red zone. But you know what? Give Clay Helton all the credit. Give USC all the credit. They pulled out a win against a quality team. But now they got to go on the road to Washington, who I think is more than solid. They've got Easton at quarterback, the transfer from Georgia. He's been looking lights out this year. And Chris Peterson, great head coach. They're playing at home. They're given 10 points. I think they cover. They're 3-1. I think they get it done against USC. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet on USC.
I agree with you. I think this week is the week that USC comes back down to earth. Clay Helton's team played out of their mind last week, offensively, defensively. The quarterback was just lofting passes up, and receivers are just like, thank you, as they were laying in his hands. But I think that Washington defense comes to play ball, locks them down, puts USC right back down to earth.
Yeah, I think USC comes back down to earth. Let's go to South Bend, Indiana, the most overrated college football program in the past 30 years, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish under Brian Kelly. I don't want to hear all the excuses from the guys from the 50s that have been following Notre Dame saying, we played really good on the... You lost. You lost again to a top 10 team. That means that your head coach, the savior, Brian Kelly, is 3-8 against top 10 teams. I don't want to hear zip. Nothing. You went on the road. You lost. You can't get it done against top 10 competition. And that's the whole story with Notre Dame the last 4 or 5 years. Subpar scheduling against directional schools in a weak ACC minus Clemson. And then they go undefeated, and they actually have to play somebody like an Alabama or Clemson, and then they get their lunch handed to them while they're out in the woodshed getting beat down with a stick that has nails in the end of it. I'm so sick of Notre Dame and their overratedness, but I'm taking Notre Dame. They're giving 11.5 points. I'm teasing it down. This is my 5-star millennial pick of the weekend. I'm taking Notre Dame minus the 5 against the Fighting Bronco Mendenhalls from Virginia. What do you see in this one, Chris?
I see Notre Dame actually winning this game. It's going to be a tough fought game. If you look at the game last week, Notre Dame, they did come to fight with Georgia. The game was a little bit more closer than what the score represented.
I didn't think so.
Really?
No, I thought Georgia's offensive line manhandled them, and DeAndre Swift did whatever he wanted. I mean, he's just like a complete missile athlete. He's awesome.
He's awesome. I mean, they played the SEC team, and they actually played Georgia close for Georgia to be a top 3 team.
Yeah, and they actually lost.
Yeah, that score was
that
score was 17-23. You were looking for
Notre Dame.
Wasn't
that close?
It was 17-23.
Wow.
Book played. He played a semi-decent game last
Semi-decent game
against a tough SEC team.
I know, but we're talking about a team at Notre Dame that the standard when you start every year is national championship or bust, and you go on a road to a team that you have to beat. This is a proving ground game. Yeah. This is stand up and show me what you're all about game. And you're telling me that Ian Book, their quarterback, had a semi-decent game? Yeah, that's not going to cut it, Chris.
It's not going to cut it, but he had a semi-decent game.
So what?
For Notre Dame. You have to understand, Notre Dame is just like Dallas fans. Every year, we're going to win a championship.
You know what you need to understand? You're on double secret man card probation just for telling me Ian Book had a semi-decent game.
Semi-decent game against a
tough
If you're
Georgia Notre Dame, you have to go into that game saying we're going to kick their teeth in and win and prove something to the country. And you know what you proved? You're overrated. You can't beat tough teams on the road. You can't beat top 10 teams. I mean, like I said, look at Kelly's record. He's 3-8 now against top 10 teams. He's 18-17 against top 15, or 18 wins, 19 losses against top 15 teams. When do we get over the hump and actually start winning something when it comes down to crunch time? Yeah, that's what I thought. Next game on the list, Clemson goes on the road to North Carolina. You're just scoring points for me, buddy. I mean, that answer says it everything. You just Number 1 team in the country, Clemson, 4-0, goes on the road to take on North Carolina. This might get out of control really fast.
Oh, that game's going to be over probably in the first half. I see Clemson just running away with this game. I don't think Notre Dame can. You got me talking about Notre Dame. I don't think
we're not talking about them anymore.
I think North Carolina they're just not going to be able to stand up to that defense. I understand Sam Howell is a pretty decent quarterback as a freshman, but Clemson's going to come in there, run them out the stadium before halftime.
North Carolina looked good in their first 2 games. They have a solid head coach that's proven, won national championships. It's a home game. I don't think it's enough. I think Clemson comes in there and puts the pedal to the metal, gets up really early, and then stomps the life out of North Carolina on the road there. A game that I'm actually looking forward to, 3-0 Kansas State in the Big 12 goes on the road to Stillwater to take on Oklahoma State. You know, Oklahoma State gave Texas all they could handle last week in Austin, and I think they actually looked pretty good. Now, there were too many penalties in that game for me. Both teams, obviously didn't look good on defense, but undisciplined play sets me off. I mean, I don't like that at all. But having said that, Oklahoma State looks like a B-level solid team, and Kansas State, post Bill Snyder era, we're trying to figure. I think they're trying to figure out who they are, but they're 3-0. They got to win against Mississippi State on the road. SEC quality team, and I think this is going to be a tough game.
It's going to be a tough game, but I think the Fighting Gunnies pull it out. I believe they run away with this game towards the second half. You have a dual threat quarterback who can not only pass the ball, but he can also get you over 100 yards rushing. Of course, they're ranked in the top 10 as far as rushing. I think it's going to be just a little too much.
Yeah, that's the big thing about Oklahoma State this year is they actually have a really good running game. And their quarterback, like you said, dual threat guy Sanders, I saw him last week. I was impressed for being a young kid. Yeah. It's not like he's been around for 4 years. So I take Oklahoma State minus the 4.5 at home. I think they cover going away. Mississippi State 3-1 goes on the road to Auburn 4-0. I'll say it. Auburn looked good at Texas A&M. I think it was more about how bad Texas A&M played and looked than it was that Auburn looked amazing. Bo Nix only went for 100 yards or 112 yards in the whole game. Their running game really saved them. And that defensive line, I mean, those guys are for real.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 4 alpha males on the front trying to, tear your head off when they come into the stadium. So I think, Auburn at home at Jordan-Hare, I think that they pull it out. It's a 10.5 point spread. Mississippi State, they lost last week and didn't look like they gave it their all at home against Kentucky. I don't know what Kentucky is either. They're just another middle of the road SEC team to me. But I think Auburn's going to pull out the win. I'm not sure I want to give up the 10.5 though.
Yeah, I think Auburn pulls out the win. I think that defensive line, that defensive front, that front four is probably one of the best lines in the nation. I think Bo Nix, he pulls it together. Someone has a better game than he had last week. I think Mississippi State, they're going to play him tough, but I think Auburn walks away at the end.
Bo Nix is starting to strike me as one of these quarterbacks that I know he's young, but he's kind of one of these guys that you just want him to manage the game. Nobody's going to be talking about Heisman with this guy, but if he just manages the game, let Auburn's defense do what it does, get your running game going and play smart football, no turnovers, no penalties, that might just be enough with that hurry-up Gus Malzahn offense. They're a very quiet 4-0 with respectable wins against Oregon and a road game at Texas A&M. Nobody's really talking about Auburn. They're kind of flying under the radar at number 7. And the last college football game that I wanted to cover this week, Chris, was Washington State, the Fighting Mike Leaches, going up against Utah, who's ranked 19th on the road. Now, here's my concern right now. Tyler Huntley, 6'1 senior for Utah, got hurt in the USC game, but finished it out. Didn't look 100%. I don't know if he's going to be 100% right now. We know Wazoo can score points.
Yeah, well, Washington State can score points, but I think that Utah has a bounce back game this week. I think they were actually shocked with this loss to USC last week. We know that Washington State doesn't play defense, as they gave up 7 touchdowns to Dorian Robinson-Thompson, who could the guy could barely pass the ball on Cincinnati.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm going to take Washington State plus the points on this one. I think that, even if they're down by 14 or so in the last minutes of the game, Washington's got an offense that can score points. Mike Leach will drive it down the field and keep it close. I like Washington State plus the points there. Utah's absolutely got to bounce back, though. I mean, that was a bad loss to a very game USC team that played with a lot of heart, especially fourth-string quarterback. You got to give USC credit, but I'm taking Washington State plus the points there. Those are the only games of interest as far as I was concerned in college football. Want to remind you guys that we love your support. Thank you for taking time to check out the show. If you like what we're doing and you like the Run DMC theme tonight, which we're kind of going a little different, we're going to try to do something a little different tonight and spice it up. Hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. Add a comment in there if you don't like the Run DMC theme. We can go with something different next week. But I was feeling a little Run DMC today. I was listening to some Big Daddy Kane, some X-Clan. I was kind of going back, back to the early,
You went way back.
I went way back. I went back there and I was kind of getting into it. I was jumping some Onyx.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really went back.
Yeah, I was listening to some old Cool Mo D, and I mean, some of the originators out there that brought hip hop up.
Right.
And I thought, you know what? I'm throwing on the chain and
Man, stop dating yourself, man.
I know,
You
I
really
am dating
are.
myself, huh? My kids, I'm not a big tech guy. I have one app. I have two apps. One of them is a light on my phone, and the other one is Shazam. So when I'm out in Vegas in the big nightclubs and I hear something I like, I can hit Shazam and, know what the music is. But I don't even need to date myself because my kids will date me. I mean, especially when my sons are over here and they're making a joke and laughing at me like I don't get it. And most of the time I can't hear it, right. Which is not to say I can't hear and I'm losing my hearing. It's just they're so far away. And my own kids date me. I'm not that old. I mean, I'm almost 50.
Come on, Ron. Do you still have an 8-track player or cassette player? Which one you rocking with?
I'm not rocking either of those. Come on, man. I mean, look, I'm almost 50 right now. I don't know many 50-year-olds that are in the shape that I'm in that could rock, the suits that I rock. And, I mean, I'm out in Vegas at the big $100 million nightclubs 4 or 5 times a year. I'm still young, right?
All right, Ron. You're the old guy in the club, man.
You know what? That kind of hurts, man.
Right, I love you, Ron.
No, you can't say one without saying the other one. Now it's I love you, Ron. But I'm young at heart. That's what matters. Is I feel young. There's some stuff that needs tuning up as far as the old body goes. I got to wear glasses sometimes, but I still feel young at heart. But I was bumping some old R&B stuff this weekend and some hip hop stuff from that. The guys today, I don't think the kids today know about hip-hop from the early 90s like I was talking about, and the LL Cool J, Cool Mo D wars, and, I don't want to get into all the NWA. I don't like all the cursing stuff. When I was young, I did, and the rebellious stuff. When you hit 17 or 18, you wake up one morning and you feel like you know it all, and your parents are stupid and they don't know anything. I went through that phase. So I don't like all the cursing stuff today. I'm kind of, get off my lawn, and I've regressed a little bit, I guess you could call it. I'd like to think of it as maturing, becoming wiser. But I was bumping some of that stuff as I was doing my research. Speaking of my research, we talked about a couple weeks ago the whole thing with equal pay for the women's national soccer team, which this story has almost gone completely by the wayside now, which is fine with me. And the discrepancy that seems to be there with the men's national soccer team when it comes to pay. And I know we talked about it about 4 weeks ago, but there's a couple articles this week, and I was looking over them. And, I just want to throw out some facts. First of all, let's establish that my position is equal pay for equal work. You and I work in a warehouse, and we make widgets. And if you make 1,000 widgets a day and I make 1,000, we should both get $20 an hour. But if you make 3,000 widgets a day, you should not get paid the same as I do making 1,000. You would agree with that?
Right.
Okay, so maybe you should get $30 or $35 an hour if you make 3,000 widgets a day.
Well, the situation...
this is it. Let's just... Are you with me to that point?
I'm with you.
Okay, let's take baby steps here, and let's actually look at some numbers, because this, like I said at the top of the show, is a business. This isn't recreational. This isn't charity. This is a business that the men and the women who represent our country get paid to do, whether it's in a FIFA condoned event like the World Cup, or they're playing friendlies against other countries, international play. They both get paid for this. But the popular opinion now is that the women aren't getting paid enough. And here's my argument with that. I think they're getting paid enough because the percentage of what they're getting paid in conjunction with what they're actually earning is higher than what the men are getting paid. Let me give you some examples. According to Carlos Cordero, president of the U.S. Soccer Federation, the Federation paid out $34.1 million in salaries and bonuses to the women's team from 2010 to 2018. Okay? Over the same amount of time, the same federation paid out $26.4 million to the men. So the women were receiving much more money. Here's a statistic about, let's just talk about World Cup, okay? World Cup 2019 in France for women, just the women's tournament, generated, according to FIFA, $131 million. That's how much money the women's tournament brought in worldwide, $131 million. That's a good number, which the U.S. women won the tournament. Now, in the previous men's tournament of the World Cup, brought in $6.1 billion. Billion. 131 million, 6 billion. We could start with that. Percentage-wise, the women don't get paid per game or per tournament as much as the men, but when you look at all the money that comes in and what the women get paid, it's a much higher percentage than what the guys get paid. The guys are bringing in billions of dollars globally. Billions. But the women's tournament is only bringing in 131 million, and I default to you.
Well, let's unpackage everything that you just said. So when it comes down to the women and getting more money, or trying to get it paid just as much as the men, the issue doesn't necessarily lie with them making more money. I think the women, the problem that the women are running up against is that they're running into a situation where there's a social construct where the women are actually not getting the marketing dollars that the men have. So therefore, the men, since they're able to generate more money because of the marketing, the just the whole world phenomenon of actually men from whether it's from the Chelsea League or these other leagues in Europe, actually generating more money, so these guys are getting more exposure. Of course, they're going to generate more money. That's just common sense business wise. So the fact that these women are asking for more money, the fact that social construct is already out there, they're going to have a situation where they're not going to generate that income that the men are generating. So therefore, they're always going to be unequal pay, whether they like it or not.
They're making more money percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise, correct.
More money percentage-wise than the men are.
Percentage-wise, yes.
Okay, so where's the beef? You're not generating the kind of income that the men are generating. The men are generating billions of dollars.
Right.
The women are generating hundreds of millions, and not even plural, $131 million. Here's another stat that I found according to the United States Soccer Federation. Women generated $101 million between 2009 and 2019
right.
over 238 games.
Correct.
Okay, so in 238 games, they generated $100 million, okay?
Right.
Okay, over the same timeline, the men generated $185 million and only played 191 games. They played 24% less games and brought in 82% more revenue. If you do not, as a worker, make my company more money, I will not pay you more money. You have to become an asset. You have to brand yourself. So the women, it's on the women to go out and create a brand. It's not unequal pay. You're actually getting more pay for less performance than the men. We're billions. I mean, we could just talk FIFA to FIFA.
Right.
World Cup to World Cup, 6.1 billion generated. There's more interest there. People are hitting that like button. People are turning on that channel. People are more intrigued with that action, that level of play. Whatever it is, they're bringing in $6.1 billion according to FIFA. You're only bringing in $131 million. $50 million of that went into the pot for the victory money. Of that, the women got $4 million of that dollars. They're getting a higher percentage of money that's out there in a smaller pot than the men are. The men actually get a lot less of an actual percentage of the $6 billion. So where is the equality? If you don't like what you're getting paid, market yourself. I don't know what else to say. Like, create a brand. Be interesting. It's not a question of unequal pay. What they did was amazing. You won the World Cup. That's great. I mean, seriously, you can't take anything away from that. And this isn't just this year. They've won half the World Cups that have been, taken place. So all credit to the women's team. I am not tearing down women. I don't think that women should get less pay for equal work. I think they should get if you don't create money, I can't pay you more money if I'm a business owner. So go out and create a brand. Go out and stir up interest. I don't know how to do that. I'm not a women's soccer marketing agent. But it's absolutely not a question of unequal pay.
I mean, yeah, you're right about that. That's the situation. The women have to be able to find a way to brand themselves, which was what I was alluding to. The fact that they don't have that branding there. You have your regular Megan Rapinos who's out here going on book tours.
Right.
She's going on talk shows or whatnot. Well, since you're doing these things, how about you find a way to get your other teammates out there to help with this branding and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you can generate this income so you can get more pay.
And I think there's been a lot. This is the opportune time this year in the last 6 months to capitalize on this. I don't know how to capitalize on it, but don't say it's a question of sexism or unequal pay. That's not what's going on. The men just generate more money. That's just the way it's just a fact of life. You know, the men generate more money. I mean, the NFL generates more money than the lingerie league. I'd rather watch the lingerie league sometimes.
Exactly.
But if you generate more money, then you are going to make more money. And that's just the bottom line where it's at right now. I mean, I don't know how else to split it.
Yeah, I definitely understand and agree with that they do have to find a way to market themselves, to make themselves more marketable. But I also think that as a whole, as a society, women, when it comes down to sports, women aren't not really looked at to be like that athletic figure, which again, it does kind of diminish the fact that they're not interesting when they put in just as much work as the men.
They might put in as much work, but would you rather watch an NBA game or a WNBA game? Okay.
NBA game.
All right, so there you go. I mean, that's just look, it's called business. And in business, you have a bottom line. And you just made the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Where are the butts going? Are they going to WNBA games who, aren't selling out and don't have a tenth of the crowd that the NBA games do? And look, this is not women bashing. This is just business. Create a brand. Make me interested. Get my dollars through ticket sales and marketing. And get me intrigued. Be interesting, be talented, be something above whatever you are now, and I will put my dollars in your direction. But right now, it just doesn't pass the eye test. That's really what a lot of this comes down to. It's not tearing down women, they're not equal. It's none of that nonsense. I'd rather watch competitive NBA level basketball than WNBA. It doesn't mean that women versus women isn't great, but it's just not, it doesn't pass the eye test for me. Therefore, they do not get my dollars. If they did pass the eye test and the quality of the games were better, then I would go and support that. And some people do, and that's fine. I'm not trying to, tear down the WNBA. But for me, it's just not intriguing enough to get my dollars. It's just not.
Well, it's not, but just not the front, but some of them WNBA games be better than the NBA games, man. Some of these girls just get at it, though. So I understand.
I haven't seen those games yet.
You have to get into it, man. I mean, you have your Brittany Grinders who dunks every other game.
Really?
Occasionally, yeah, Brittany Grinders.
What does that do on your excitometer? Brittany Griner.
Man, it kind of hypes me up because you have this
Brittany
lady.
Griner slamming dunk
She's
hypes
slamming,
you up.
Man. Yeah.
You'd rather see that than Michael Jordan taking off from the free throw line? Okay.
Well, I mean, that's 20 years ago. But
it's still more exciting than what the women are doing today.
This is the fact that these women are actually out here balling. I mean, because I grew up playing basketball, grew up playing, my homegirls playing basketball with us, with the guys out there. But to see a lady actually get out there and dunk, man, that's pretty dope, man.
It is pretty dope, but comparatively speaking, I wish and want the best for female athletes, but you got to create a brand. You got to get me excited. If you get me excited, then you get my money. I mean, that's what Walmart does. It gets you excited about one thing. You go in there for toilet paper. 2 hours later, you walk out with $235 bill. You got me excited about a bunch of cheap products from, China that I wasn't willing to buy. And I went in there and you got me excited. You marketed right. You product placement right. you got the money out of my wallet. I have money. I want to give it to support good entertainment. So if you give me that good entertainment, you will get my dollar.
You're right. I think really what the women really need to do is to look at the Serena model. If you notice,
yes.
whenever Serena's playing tennis,
yes,
the ratings are through the roof.
Yes, good point.
Serena, she has that marketability that women need to learn how to capture.
Nike ads, women empowerment.
Exactly.
I love those ads.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think if you are a soccer player, a World Cup, the first thing I'm doing, WNBA, the first thing I'm doing, who is Serena's agent? How can I make this brand my brand?
And here's one thing that I think is a component in this discussion is that soccer is not big in America.
No.
It's just not. You have millions and millions and millions of kids that play soccer. It doesn't translate over to TV. I mean, one of my good friends, he married a lady from England, and he is... Ron, come over and watch this game. I said, I can't do it. I can't sit in front of a TV for 7.5 hours and watch one goal get scored. I just can't. I grew up in America. I want it now. I want it my way. It's a microwave age we're living in. I want excitement. I want hockey. I mean, that's why baseball is fading out.
Right.
It's just not pushing the excitement meter. And especially with the younger generation, it's like, I want it now. I want excitement, and I want it now. I want it in memes. I want it in Twitter. I want to be able to connect to it in multiple different ways electronically right now. And soccer just doesn't do that. Like I said, my friend Keith, his argument's going to be, well, it's a chess match. I don't want a chess match. On Saturday afternoon, I don't want to see two guys from the former Soviet Union playing chess, hitting a clock every 30 seconds. I want excitement. I want to see the action going up and down the floor. And you know what? Serena creates that.
Right.
It's not there with soccer. And soccer is big globally. So that's why maybe Men's World Cup generates $6 billion.
Exactly.
But here in the United States, I think that's really holding back the women's movement is because soccer is good at the groundworks level and they haven't been able to capture that attention and bring it up to a level on TV where it's exciting and they have a brand that people are going to continue to follow. It's just, it might just be the sport itself. I don't know.
I think
because I don't follow men's soccer.
I think it is the sport itself, even though, the MLS is starting to it's trying to creep up a little bit. It's not going to beat the big three or big four, rather.
Well, I'm actually surprised at how fast MLS soccer in America has grown. When you look at all the teams now, when this came, when they were like, we're going to bring a soccer league to America, I was like, yeah, you know what? Call me in 10 years when this thing flops.
Right.
It hasn't flopped.
No.
It has a good base. I mean, they're actually selling out games. But again, this is a men-driven league, and I'm not even interested in that. But they have found a niche. They've found a market.
Right.
And it's becoming successful. Orlando, Salt Lake, LA, they go get players from around the world. And something about that is exciting to some people here. But they can't touch college football numbers or NBA numbers or NFL numbers still. And I don't know how to bridge that gap. I don't know what the key is to bridging it. It seems like it's a very niche sport right now. And to try and capitalize on that, it seems like an uphill battle.
It really is. Soccer is a niche sport. Most kids who play soccer, just looking at it from my friend's standpoint, his kids play soccer, but that's more for conditioning than anything because of all the running. So he uses that to condition for football, basketball, or anything else he wants to play, baseball. So really, a lot of kids when they play soccer when they're younger, it's just more or less for conditioning. It's not to go pro.
Yeah, and that's the last word on that subject. Let's get to our top 5 list. We were talking last week about all these crazy names that are out there. The top 5 list for the week is the best college football plays that we have seen in the past 30 years. And there's been some great ones out there, some really memorable ones. At number 5 for me is Appalachian State silences the Big House in 2007. I remember I was at the Swamp on that day, and I just happened to, in the third quarter, look up and see the score that Appalachian State was actually close in the fourth quarter. And when I saw the highlights after the game, of course, and saw that Appalachian State actually blocked the kick and beat Michigan, it was like, this had never happened before, ever. I mean, there's no directional small school like Taco Tech from a city of 3,000 people that goes to the big house and beats a big blue chip team. And so it was like Appalachian State actually won at Michigan. That was huge. That block kick was huge. Appalachian State's been a solid team ever since. They were good before that. So at number 5 for me, the biggest play was the block kick in 2007 at the Big House by Appalachian State. I mean, that was just an absolute eye-opener.
Well, my number 5, it goes to, let's give some love to the running backs. My number 5 is Bo Jackson versus Brian Bosworth on the goal line. Whew, man, did Bo lay him out or what? Jeez. Everybody's all hyped up about the Boz versus Bo versus the Boz. And you have these two powerhouses. You have Oklahoma at the time. You had Oklahoma, ready to go. You had Bosworth there. You had Bo. Mm-hmm. Bo Jackson, unstoppable running back. This guy's fast, big guy.
Yeah.
You had Brian Bosworth, the great defensive player. Quote unquote, the J.J. Watt before J.J. Watt. He gets up on the line. Bo lines up. They hand the ball off to Bo. You see it go. You're getting ready for the impact, and boom. Where's Bosworth? Bo's in the end zone.
It just got like it's running over by a train.
It's over. So I'm like, what happened? And you know what? You really haven't really heard from Brian Bosworth, except for a lot of some of those C-list movies he did. Like Stone Cold, and now he's in the Dr. Pepper commercials.
Hey, I've got Bo in my top 5 athletes of all time.
Oh yeah, man.
Remember the Bo knows ads? Bo can do anything. Bo's playing hockey. Bo's playing chess. Bo's playing basketball. Bo does everything.
Yeah, man. I remember Bo Jackson in the cartoon Pro Stars when Bo Jackson had the bat that had everything in it, from a helicopter to a baseball launcher.
You're watching a little too much TV when you were young.
I was a kid, man. Pro Stars, you had Wayne Gretzky, Bo Jackson, and Michael Jordan.
Wow.
I mean, hey, you can't beat that.
I mean, like I said, I got Bo Jackson in my top 5 athletes of all time. I mean, he was just an athlete extraordinaire. He could do a lot of different things. And, that's a good one at 5. My number 4 is the Tommy Frazier touchdown run in the national championship game against my Florida Gators. He breaks 5 tackles on a rush to the right, goes 73 or 75 yards. I mean, the tackling was absolutely bad, but it's a national championship game. Everything's on the line. He was a Heisman athlete at the time, top of his game as a quarterback. And to break 5 tackles, you could say, well, it's bad tackling, but I'm going to say it was the heart. Because he just never, if you watch the video, his legs never stop moving. He never gives up. So that's at my number 4, the Tommy Frazier run in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl against the Florida Gators that they just blew the Gators out. And unfortunately, at the time, I had to watch that highlight and just kind of go in the corner and shut up. But Tommy Frazier ends up having a cup of coffee in the NFL, but you can't ever take away that play that he had.
No, you can't take away that. I mean, Tommy Frazier is probably one of the best dual threats to probably ever play college football. Mm-hmm. My number 4, let's see. My number 4, I'm going to go with the Fumblerooski Notre Dame versus Miami back in 1984.
Oh, gosh, that was fixed.
Hey, man. Nope. Tom Osborne, nope. He didn't. Nobody thought he would have the goal to actually pull that down in Miami territory, but to actually pull that play off, and it actually worked against that Miami team, one of those Miami team in the 80s.
Yeah, how far is Nebraska from those days, and how far is the Miami defense from what it used to be in those days?
Ooh, they're so
light
far
years away now, huh?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, light years. My number 3 is the Statue of Liberty play from Boise State. Oh, that was such a great game. I love that play. Boise State, the Statue of Liberty play, where it was a run to the left in 2007 at the the Tostitos Bowl. And the greatest thing about that is just the guts to call that play. I mean, that was just so amazing. Then you convert, and on top of that, that running back went over to the cheerleader section and proposed to his future wife, who she said yes right after the game. I mean, it's just win, win, win. You win the game. It's a gutsy call. You actually convert. Then you get engaged. The worst part about it is the last one. You got engaged.
Yeah.
I'll just take all the sports part of it. So that's my number 3. I mean, that was just... And that was at a point where Boise State was just like coming out of the clouds. Nobody had heard about them. They were just some young juggernaut team. It's like, do they even belong in the Fiesta Bowl? I think they belong in the Fiesta Bowl. He converted. Yeah. Awesome play. One of my top 5.
All right, my number 3 was the play before that play. Mm-hmm. Everybody forgets about this play.
The flea flicker?
No, the hook and ladder to take it.
Oh yeah, the hook and ladder. That's right, the hook and ladder. Yeah.
No, everybody forgets about this play.
Yep.
But Boise pulled off one of the most, one of the hardest plays to actually implement on the football field. The hook and ladder. I mean, geez, you have an offensive lineman running down the field.
Yeah.
Actually make that play work.
Yeah.
Against an Oklahoma team that was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It actually shocked that team.
Yep.
Yes.
Now I remember that. But you know what? That's a good one. I'm glad you brought that one back because I kind of put that in a file that is down in the basement somewhere. But that's a really good one. And a lot of our young viewers, go on YouTube and check out these plays because if you have any appreciation for college football, these are some of the greatest plays. It's not because it's our list. Right. These are just great plays. When you see them in history, it's like, wow. I mean, it's just entertainment value, the guts to call some of these plays.
Yeah.
My number 2 is a freak play that you couldn't draw up anywhere.
Which is that?
I'm going with the Cal-Stanford game where the Stanford band comes on the field after the kickoff.
Right.
And Cal runs it back in 1982, running through the band members on the field to score the game-winning touchdown. I mean, like I said, you could never draw this up. It's just a freak play. But the fact that Stanford quit, their band is on the field, and Cal's still running, trying to score, and they do. Yeah. And they win the game. And the best part is about the 4 or 5 yard line, the guy that's carrying the ball knocks over one of the Stanford band members and just keeps going. It's not like, I'm sorry. It's like, you were in my way.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that play, like I said, if you haven't seen that play, just go YouTube the Cal-Stanford band game play and just be amazed at sports and how awesome and unscripted it can be at times where it just blows your mind. And the entertainment value on stuff like that, it makes life easier to go through when we have things like this that happen that are so unscripted but come out so awesomely. I mean, that's why it's my number 2.
Oh, my number 2 goes to my man, Flutie Flakes, Doug Flutie.
Oh,
throwing
really?
the Hail Mary against that Miami team. Again, that Miami defense
I know, but that's
back in the 80s.
Kind of a freak play, though.
But, man, that Miami team in the 80s, man.
At Miami.
At Miami, at that.
And BC wasn't anything before Flutie got there.
Exactly. And you have the smallest person on the football field with the biggest heart to throw that pass. But I guess a lot of people
Who caught that pass?
His name is Gennard Phelan.
Gerard Phelan.
Yeah.
Gerard Phelan. So, funny story about that. When I was really young, I was kind of a quasi Boston College fan.
Right.
And I was watching that game, and Miami goes down and scores to take the lead. And I look at the clock and I go, okay, there's less than 40 seconds left. Boston College didn't have an awesome offense that year that could just do whatever they wanted to do. And I went outside and started throwing a baseball up against the side of the house like I was a pitcher.
Right.
And I remember I walked back in about 10 minutes later, and my dad goes, Boston College won the game. And I couldn't believe it. And I saw the highlights of that game, and it's stuck with me. I think that was in 1984.
84, yeah.
Yeah, 84. Wow. And then Flutie ends up being in the league for like 9 million years at less than 6 foot.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I remember when he was a Charger. They kind of brought him in at the end of his career, but that's a good one, but it is kind of a freak play. It wasn't a talent play. He did have to throw it over 50 yards, but I don't know if that would be obviously in my top 5, but it's in yours, so that's fine. My number 1 play in college football ever. If you're watching in Alabama, just turn it off right now. Just turn off the podcast. You have our sympathies. You could turn it off. But my number 1 play has to be from 2013. Number 1 Alabama on the road at number 4 Auburn. Kick 6. This is my number 1 play ever in college football. It's a game-winning play. Yep. It's 2 top 5 ranked teams. It's the Iron Bowl. Yep. It's a rivalry. It's the last play of the game. It's a freak play that hardly ever happens. And the greatest thing about this that not a lot of people, I think, noticed when it happened was when that Auburn player catches it in the end zone, he doesn't just go right straight for the left-hand side hash like you'd think he does. He kind of sets his course right up the middle of the field. And who's on the field for Alabama? It's all the big heavies that are blocking.
Yes, sir.
And then he does it just long enough to pull them down straight to come after him.
Right.
and he cuts it out, and he tight ropes that thing all the way down. And, as soon as you knew he was staying in bounds, it was like, that's game. Just don't do anything stupid. Don't run into another one of your players in the convoy going down towards the end zone.
Right.
Oh, my God. And I'm not even an Auburn fan or an Alabama hater. I mean, just for all those reasons I named, that is the greatest college football play that I've personally ever seen. Number one.
Oh, yeah. I can't, but I can't. You can't disagree with that. I mean, as a matter of fact, looking at that play, I had my Heineken moment. I'm at a sports bar, and I'm turning around. I'm talking to one of my friends, and, he's looking over the shoulder, and I hear everybody, yeah! And I'm like, what just happened?
What just happened? I hate that!
And to see that Auburn pulled that off against an Alabama team that was supposed to be, that national contender, that national championship contender, for Auburn to pull that off.
The most unbelievable possible play. I mean,
Yes.
it's my number one. So what have you got at number one?
My number one, sorry, USC fans. I mean, I know that your teams back in the early 2000s, you guys were possibly could have been one of the best college dynasties ever. Reggie Bush, Leinart, Lindell, White.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys had a squad.
Awesome head coach, recruiting every year.
Man.
Rose
Pete
Bowl.
Carroll. Here we go. 2006, 4th and 5, Texas, Vince Young, runs, dives. Walks into the end zone.
Walks in, yeah.
Walks into the end zone.
Stands in the corner.
Just kind of like, yes, I told you last year I was coming back here and I was going to win this thing.
Yeah.
And he walks out, beating this USC team that was supposed to be so dominant.
Oh, they were like the Roman Empire.
This team.
They were like the Roman Empire. Nobody's bringing them down, right?
Nope, nobody was bringing them down. But Vince Young walks in, wins that game on the last play of 4th and 5.
Yeah,
that's my number one.
Yeah, they didn't have any choice on that because they were down by more than 3, so they had to go for it, and that was an amazing play. Vince Young, you want to talk about here today, gone later on today.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that guy would be lights out in the NFL, and it just goes to prove that awesome players and talent in the NFL don't always you could be at the height of your game in college football, and it doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL.
I mean, no, you look at guys like Tim Tebow or
Danny Werfel, Tommy Frazier,
or
Vinny Testaverde,
and then you look
Chris Wanke.
Yeah.
E.J. Emanuel.
No.
You see the trend?
I see you keep going as a Florida State quarterback. Hey, those are Jimbo's guys, man.
Oh, that was a good list. That was our top 5 list of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Friday nights, join us here on the First Round live on YouTube, and we're going to go over a top 5 list every single week. What's the other stuff that's going on in the world of sports? We covered college football. We covered some inequality pay. We covered our top 5. But what are the things that are interesting you this week in the world of sports, Chris?
Outside of college football, we Texas. Here we go, Kansas.
What is Kansas basketball?
Kansas basketball. What is it with college basketball and all of these scandals?
Recruiting is not as big a problem in any other facet of sports as it is in college basketball.
And I'm trying to figure it out. I guess maybe because college basketball has this one and done situation where you have to try to get these players to stay on more than a year or so, or you're just trying to get those top recruits so that you can get to the NCAA tournament. But Kansas, I mean, you have major level 1 violations.
Yeah, how much trouble is Bill Self in?
Oh man, Bill Self is actually facing that situation where he can be suspended for a year.
And you know what? Here's the other thing. As big as a scandal and a problem as it is, we saw the Arizona conflict came up at the end of, in the middle of last year, and then it kind of just went away and you don't hear about it. Right. I wonder if that's going to happen here too. It's just somebody slips somebody some money, or somebody knows something that I don't know, and these big problems that jump onto the scene all of a sudden disappear, and nobody's talked about it anymore.
Well, the situation with Kansas is they're going to try to fight it. And once you try to fight the NCAA, it's going to drag on.
They're going to dig their heels in.
They're going to dig their heels in.
Yeah. What's the next story that you got for us this week, Chris?
The second story that I have for us is actually Earl Spence versus Shawn Porter. Nobody's really talking about this fight. Boxing.
So you and I were talking about this last night about, I used to love the HBO After Dark package.
Right.
And it was Jim Lampley and Merchant,
Right.
Larry Merchant. And then it was Roy Jones Jr. and Max Kellerman. And, that third part was always interchangeable.
Right.
And then it went away. Yeah. And I was like, boxing's hard enough to follow with all the corruption and questionable decisions that come out in boxing fights. But then you take HBO Boxing After Dark off the air, and it's like, how do you gain a following?
Well, it's kind of hard to gain a following especially when you have pay-per-views that are like $70, $80, to $100 to watch a fight where you don't really know the fighters. At least with HBO After Dark, you got to know these fighters as they begin to work their way up, to be contenders and to be champions.
Right, and ESPN has tried to pick up the package with their Saturday night fights, but those are not every Friday. They're inconsistent. It could be, every 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then it's, they do a good job with that package, but it's still, it's not the same. I mean, there's just, I don't know. I guess I just am kind of, stuck with the Jim Lampley. I loved him. He's super smart. I mean, Jim Lampley's forgot more about sports than I'll probably ever know, and especially boxing. I just think they had a 5-star program going on, and now it's not there. I'm kind of sad. What's the last thing you wanted to cover with the show this week?
And the last thing I'm covering is the NFL getting rid of the preseason and moving to 17 games.
Okay, yeah. So let's get into that. You're adding another regular season game,
right?
And then you're giving up 4 preseason games.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to evaluate your rookies that you're bringing in, any free agent talent that you got in the offseason, or your veterans? You're going to evaluate them in a real game situation if you don't have preseason games? I mean, am I going out of my mind?
I really think the NFL, they really haven't thought this through.
What's new?
The Players Association, they're looking like, no, we don't think this is going to be right for those players because you have players.
It's got to be right for the players.
Exactly.
But I mean, you're actually playing less games.
Right.
Right? I mean, you're taking away 4 preseason games and you're adding 1 game. So that's a +3. I mean, it's a -3. You're losing 3 games to get beat up and everything else. So the players have got to, if I'm a player, I'm loving this, unless I'm a rookie. How are you going to, here's the question. How are you going to evaluate talent if you don't have a preseason? It's good for the fans because now I don't have to pay $100 to see a bunch of guys I've never heard of.
Right.
So I don't like that aspect of how it currently works. But, what they've got to do, this is the compromise that I would come up with. You add 1 game, you have your bye week, and you go 2 preseason games. You can still evaluate talent. You give your rookies a chance to come in and prove themselves. Your free agents, you see where your veterans are at, and it doesn't cost you anything. Then week 3, we start with week 1 of regular season. 2 preseason games, and then you go right into the season.
That's a good compromise. However, the NFLPA and the NFL, they're not going to get a chance to compromise with that anymore because those discussions are broken off until the end of the year.
Pick up 1 game and get rid of the whole preseason. That's stupid. That's not going to happen. It's just not. That's just not going to happen. You've got to be able to evaluate the talent that you drafted and the free agents off the street. You can't make the preseason go away. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I think a good compromise would be lower your ticket prices for guys like us to go see the preseason game. Yeah. It's a bunch of guys we don't know of anyway. And take it down to 2 preseason games. And if you want to add a game, that's fine. So you go to 17 games with the bye,
right,
and you're still taking away a whole game,
yeah,
which those guys aren't even playing in the regular season anyway. I mean, game 2 and game 4 in the preseason, none of the veterans that are going to make the team are playing in those games anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I think that would be a good compromise, and I think Roger Goodell should listen to me. I have a voice, and it's a quite intelligent one, not based on my picks last week. But hopefully this week my picks will be a lot more solid. That music can mean only one thing. It's time to thank our support staff here at the first round. But before I do, I wanted to take a chance to talk to you about St. Jude Children's Hospital. They do a great job. You can go to rondalbeck.com in the top left-hand corner. Click on St. Jude. You can either donate to them, which is a great thing to do, or you can learn more about all the great work that St. Jude does. We love sponsoring them here on the first round. But to thank our support staff, the first man I want to thank is my co-host, Chris Roberts, doing a great job here. The man on the board, son of God, Taylor, El Presidente, Chet 40. Thank you for all you did, Chet. For all of us here at the first round, I want to say thank you for watching. You can participate in the first round by getting a hold of us at thefirstraundrd@gmail.com with any comments or questions. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and we'll catch you on Sunday morning right here on our YouTube channel live talking about everything going on for NFL Sunday. Until then, take care.